Hi, I'm Lewis. I directed and co-wrote Magid Zafar.
Hi, I'm Etsen from Taiwan. I'm the director writer of Damp.
I'm Mari from Brazil and I'm representing Uniformed. I am the producer and co-screenwriter.
Let me start though with a sort of a thing that did connect them, as for me anyway. In each of your films, your character is facing imposed restraints that they can't overcome. Yen's disabilities, the arranged marriage situation, or institutionalized homophobia. What was behind the thinking in terms of putting your character in that kind of a position?
So for me, it was interesting because we had sort of the shape of the film in terms of the relationship between the two characters, like very early on, before we even had a setting for it. We knew it'd be British Asian, but in terms of like the location, a lot of the development was trying to find where to place it. And it was when we landed on putting it in a takeaway restaurant, that's when it all sort of clicked, because then immediately kind of through that setting we could kind of put a whole world into that space. It allowed us to have every generation of British Asian man. And if in the film we've got all the way from like kids to the elders, and putting it in sort of a restaurant allowed us to make that a microcosm for a subculture. And then on top of that, allowed us to really like break up the levels of repression and performance as a mask. So we built it that, you've got the front of the restaurant, and that's where you're most exposed. And then we kind of go deeper into the restaurant in terms of the kitchen, and then that's like one layer of the character's performance drops, and then all the way into the storeroom where it's just the two of them, and the performance is completely dropped. And of course, with each stage, there's less people around them, and there is that kind of narrative underneath it, which is the film is really like a dramatization of the only way these two can talk properly about what's going on is when there's no one around, and the film is a process about in terms of getting
Until they
them
get
into
to
that
that
space.
storeroom. Yeah. The owner of the restaurant, and is it an uncle? What
Yeah.
they bring to the front of the diner was terrific. I think that they sort of commenting on what's going on between your two main characters without knowing it.
Yeah, it was important to kind of show that that side of the subculture as well, in terms of it allows you to put characters into the mix who are at the same time like super familiar with your main characters, and kind of allow the audience to learn kind of expositional stuff about, oh, the two of them have been friends since childhood, and they must be super close since even the uncle knows him. But at the same time, there's like a layer of tension above that, because they also completely don't know what's going on. And they're the uncle and the owner, in terms of their attitudes towards the marriage, they're acting without malice, like, because they, for them it's normal to congratulate him, and of course he should be happy, and it's a big day of celebration. And when you see that they're how welcoming they are to him, to Majid is so generous, it then, I think it really complicates how Majid has to perform and put on a front, because he has to he has to give in. Like, if everyone around me is acting celebratory and congratulatory about this thing, then I need to play into that
I need to do
energy
that
as
as
well.
well.
Yeah.
So my film is working on the theme of people with disability, and I don't know how consciously aware in Western countries, but in Asia, in let's say in Taiwan, our society and our culture has um, has the idea to infantilize people with disability, like they only deserve to be cared for, but they don't have any desire.
Right.
And I think that's the core, that why I want to make this film. And for me, even though the film looks like a queer topic, it's a queer film anyway. But for me, it's not about like gay romance love, or like being in love with a same-sex person. It's about a suppressed disability figure, how he wants to fit in our idea of normal, to be normal. But the normal for people with disability and the normal for us are very different. But the idea of wanting to fit themselves into the idea of our normal, which is the ending of the film, comes out really sad, even though he gets what he thinks he wants in the dream. So that's like the whole concept of how I want to make this short, and I also want to develop this short more into my first debut feature.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for my English because it's not perfect, so I hope you can understand me and Dan. Dan is the director and also a co-screenwriter. We were interested in exploring like what happens when a person feels like an essential part of itself. It's incompatible with the environment they belong. So we thought about the military institution because it's a place where there are very rigid expectations about masculinity, and it was like a perfect environment to talk about that, to talk about this struggle, this need to be himself and not being able to. So when we saw dialogue with the military institution here in Brazil, we encountered that same field hostility or protagonist faces. So we talked about officers, LGBTQ officers, and we discovered that Gustavo's story, who is our character, Gustavo's story was the story of many whose voices were constantly silenced by the very systems they served. So we thought there was like a good environment. It was calling us like to talk about this because it has like such a big emotional cost, and we wanted to explore this internal silence, this need to open and to scream.
And the title of the film reflects that, right? A uniform buttons you up.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gives you a role in society, right? Everybody looks at you and knows what's expected, but it is buttoning you up. And at several points in the film, we see him sort of laboriously either doing or undoing the buttons on his uniform.
Also, just something, the name of the film here in Brazil, Fardado, it's also it's uniformed, but it's fadado. It's very similar to fardado, and fadado is like a burden. So we wanted to make this kind of
nice. One of the most powerful things in your film happens in Gustavo's imagination, where he gives this speech to his partner, and it's impassioned and it's heartfelt, but then that cut to realize, oh, that didn't actually just happen, was really powerful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like that was what he really wanted to do. So everybody was expecting for that, and just curiosity, that scene didn't exist in the movie, but we made like this test for, I don't know how to say that in English, sorry, but like to see who our actor was gonna be. So that speech was only for that, but the actor was so good that we thought, we have to do this. We have to put this in the film. But how can we do this? We already have the end, so right. It can really happen. And we came up with this idea, and I can't see the movie without it anymore, because there was a scream that was needed, and we kind of think, what would happen if that was real? Everything would be different.
Etsen, dreams or imaginary situations link uniformed with damp. What you were saying about people not being comfortable looking at folks with disability and seeing them as sexual beings, you bring that contrast right to the fore unapologetically in Yen's dream sequences. How did you handle that?
I think there's one important thing that while I'm doing this film, doing the film research, because I'm not a person with disability, but I was working in an NGO with people with disability. So I'm doing a lot of interview with them, and then they all have common dream of them being being a able-bodied person to do something nasty, let's say. But when they have like a nasty dream with their own disability body, they feel real. They feel more sensual.
Right.
So I found it really interesting while they through the process of self identify to have the sexual interests in whatever genders. They all sharing the common dream of themselves being able-bodied. So the concept of being able-bodied in the dream, which it's actually reflect themselves being how sad they are, becomes like the core elements in my fantasy sense. Then that's how I made the decision that I want my main character, my protagonist Yen, to, while he conquered the body he wants, but the results he actually doesn't really need it. He doesn't actually really reflect on what he had dreamed about. So that's how I designed the scene.
That moment in the dream when he raises his hands, right? He has agency now.
But I also think like the important thing is like he has the agency in the dream, and what I want to make audience to think about is, does he really wants it? Because he doesn't feel happy with that. Even he has the agency, but he doesn't feel happy with that. And what does that mean? And when it reflects to us, let's say able-bodied people, while we imagine ourselves become what we want, do we really want, or it's just like, or it's a sound or a voice from the society or from whatever, from the culture, from the society, from the government, to make you think like that this is what you want. I hope like audience can think about that.
With Magid, you laid out the three spaces in the restaurant, and your filmmaking radically changes its tempo by the time we get to the storeroom. The things in the front of the restaurant happen so quickly, and it's at least to me, it seemed really clear that he's hiding in the whirlwind. And it's not until he gets to that still, silent place where he has to stop hiding and really talk about what's going on.
Yeah, so it was really all about wanting the form of the film to match his headspace as much as possible. So in the first half, he is deploying all types of code switching and tricks in many different ways. And that kind of gave way to doing that with the film. Like, it's the first half is, entirely maximalist, and there's nothing we're not doing. Like it's fast cut, but there's music and sound design, and it's with this really like throwing everything at the wall. And then by the end of the film, like, just like Magid in the first half is presenting as one thing, but really it's something else. I wanted to do that with the film. I wanted the film to open and you think it's this type of film, but really the film is the second half. Like, that's what the film always is. And the first half is as much of a performance formally as Magid's performance is himself. And then, on a technical level, it was really about anything we were doing in the first half, I wanted to do the opposite in the second half. And that kind of went on every level. So the first half, probably in the first minute has like 100 cuts, maybe less, but it might as well be 100 cuts. And the final minute of the film is just one shot. you know.
Yeah.
So and similarly, like color palette, the first half is all mixed color temperatures, and then this and mixed, you know, mixed lights, and then the second half we just lit it with a single source, and for the color just went like almost monochromatic. It's kind of it's single toned. And similarly with sound design, the first half it was about just stacking as many different tracks on top of each other to so you feel the atmosphere vividly. And for that second half, it was about going really simple, and really the only thing that exists under the characters' voices is just like the rain outside, and it's almost, you know, it could play in stereo really, that second half. And it was really about sort of dropping all those tools, and as a result, like really giving way to the to let the characters and the actors just tell that story. It's the first half we're really helping the story along as the director and editors. We're really kind of helping the character tell that story with the form of the film. And then it was kind of about getting into the second half and being like, over over to you guys. We're just gonna show the audience your face and your face, and you've got to take it.
We are approaching the end of our time, sadly. Thought I'd give you each a chance to shout out other folks. Obviously, film's a collaborative effort. If there are other people you wanted to mention.
Yeah, so a big one for me is my editor. I really feel like I made the film with my editor, kind of in quite a big way. Like really, that's the person I spent the most time with on the film in terms of just the hours of in terms of the hours of work. And I think it's the for any director, it's the final relationship you have on a film, so it kind of ends up feeling the closest for that reason. And yeah, I mean the film was really, it was built for the edit and found in the edit at the same time. And my background's in editorial, so I kind of am always thinking like that. And then of course I like as much as the edit, my co-writer Safin, kind of those were my two closest collaborators, my co-writer and editor, and everyone else. But this is a short Q&A.
For me, I think I want to shout out to my producer, Brendan. We've been working on let's say the two characters, Yen and the migrant worker. Two characters. We've been working on my feature script for more than 3 years, and we made the short last year. So I think we're still on our journey, and we're still friends. We didn't let's say divorced after making the short. So I want to thank him.
For me, I have to talk about Dan Biurrum, the director. Of course, he's the soul of this film. And we were in this together for many years, and people who live in Brazil knows how hard it is to make a film here. Like, it's so difficult. And if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for our connection, it wouldn't be possible. So yeah, I wish he could be here, but he said, no, my English is not so good, so please go there and talk to me. But he knows how important he was. Of course, he is the director, but also Louis said, and he was also the editor. So it was a very, very beautiful and amazing thing that he did with this film. We created this story together, and he could make this story come true. Like, we took this out of paper and he made it like a beautiful thing. And we are very proud of the film that we were able to do. And we are really happy to be here in this festival. Like, it means a lot to us, because it is really hard to make a film in Brazil and reach these places where we really want to be, like talk about it and foster dialogue. It's amazing and very important to us. So of course I would like to thank everyone of the crew and cast. They're amazing, but Dan is the soul of this film.